Some colleges are better than pro jobs. I don't think there's any question about that in my mind. I think the last 2 years in New England were really hard for them. Now in pro football, there's so much interference. This is not about control. I don't want anybody to misinterpret this. But I think it's about how many layers are put in.
There is big news possibly emanating out of the college football world. And I can't even imagine what your phone looks like after a day like yesterday when the news comes out that maybe Bill Belichick would be interested in going down to Chapel Hill and replacing Mac Brown as the new head coach at UNC. Let me just ask you, were you surprised when you saw that news come out? I'm guessing you probably weren't, but what do you make of that?
Well, I think, Bill has always been somebody who loves coaching, right? And I think the way college football has changed dramatically. It's gone from, hey, we want you to come to our school, look at our campus, look at our new facilities, to a pay-for-play environment. It's a completely different game. And I think the reason Nick Saban left college football was those 20 guys lined up out of his office the day after the season. They wanted raises. That's pro football. I think Bill's been in that environment for his whole life, pro football, understanding how to manage a salary cap, understanding how to manage a locker room as it relates to a salary cap. And I think when you look over the landscape of the NFL, I think the question mark really becomes, where are the great jobs? When I started in the league in 1984, we did not have huge front offices. We didn't have big, coaches came in, they were the power broker, they ran the team, the general manager ran the team. Now today, there's layers upon layers. There's sons of owners who run the analytical department. I mean, it's a long, long, steep curve. And some of these franchises that may be looking for coaches in the offseason have had a history of losing. And there's a reason for why they've lost. So I think that the landscape for a lot of coaches has changed. College football is still going to be challenging, still going to be tough, but it is a pro sport now. It's pretty clear. So to me, when you look at it in that context and you look at what the University of North Carolina has to offer, it certainly could make sense. I mean, and again, I'm not privy to the internal conversations of what's going on. But I think from the outside, knowing Bill, knowing his love of coaching, he's been around the University of Washington's program with his son Steven out there and his relationship with Jed Fish. He's been at Arizona when Jed was coaching there. So I think he has an idea about what it takes in college. And if there's a program smart enough to be willing to make a phone call, like North Carolina obviously was, then I think it's something that he would listen to. Look, the world is changing. And the main question most people would want to know is, would you give up chasing Don Shula's record to go to college? And if you ask that question, you really don't know who Bill Belichick is. Because Belichick's about coaching. He's not about, I'm chasing a record.
That's absolutely fascinating. You know the mentality of the man. And sure, it'd be nice to have, but I don't. To your point, that's not what's motivating him at this juncture.
That's not what motivates him.
Right.
I think the question mark he would ask before he interviewed for any NFL job would be, can we win a championship? Can fundamentally we win? I think the biggest mistake probably, and I don't want to speak for him, but I think the biggest mistake we all make in our careers is we think something's going to change where we are. I think the last 2 years in New England were really hard for them. And I think because of the changes that were going on internally within their organization that were kind of deviating from what they had done when they won 6 Super Bowls. Again, I think to me, when you go to college or if you're going to a pro team, you run your program. I mean, Jed Fish I've said this for years now, and I've said this to other people. Some colleges are better than pro jobs. I don't think there's any question about that in my mind because the coach runs the program. And so now in pro football, there's so much interference. There's so much out from the outside, well, we have to have a committee meeting to do this or we need to do that. And this is not about control. I don't want anybody to misinterpret this. But I think it's about how many layers are put in. It's one thing to have a Senate and a Congress. We don't seem to get a lot done because of it. But you have to have some form of debate, but you also have some way to make a decision. And I think certainly college is quicker than that.
Back in, the older days, the stigma was college coaches that went to the NFL, it's not going to work out. Jimmy Johnson, maybe he broke that a little bit by going and winning championships in Dallas. But, Nick Saban went to Miami, didn't exactly work out. Steve Spurrier covered him in D.C., didn't exactly work out with the Redskins back in the day. Because the landscape, as you alluded to, has changed so dramatically, could we see this flip that it's not just Bill Belichick, but it's other pro coaches that can now go down to the college level and make that transition more successfully because of the changing environment?
Yeah, no question. I think there certainly would be. Now I think to me, and let's face it, the money that the colleges are paying coaches now is astronomical. There used to be a financial problem going to college, but that's not the case any longer. So, look, I think, football's you have time. You're limited in pro football on how much time you have to teach the players too. In the old days and not too far ago, you were able to spend as much time as you wanted with the NFL players. You could bring in we had guys come in the off-season program when I was in Cleveland with Bill in February. Orlando Brown, Bob Dahl, Wally Williams, Gene Williams. We had all these good young offensive linemen. We put them in the indoor facility in February 1st, and and they start working out and start getting better. You can't do that anymore. You're not allowed to talk to them. You can't do that anymore. So you can't develop young players. And I think that's also the way it a little bit is in college. You can't, you've got to be careful on what you do, and there's rules and regulations. But I think the sports have kind of evened out, especially professionally now.
That's a great insight. And Michael, do you just turn your phone off? You're like, hey, I'm going to go watch Oregon and Penn State. Stop texting me about this stuff.
I think to me, anybody – look, Bill, I've always said this about Belichick. He's one of the greatest secret holders of all time. If you tell him a secret, it ain't getting out. Now, I don't know how this got out, right? I'm sure it came from somebody from Carolina.
Yeah.
But we'll see what happens. If Carolina's smart, let me ask you this question, Dave. If you were a Clemson booster or you were a Florida State booster, who would you want North Carolina to not hire?
Bill Belichick. Do not hire Bill Belichick.
There you go. There's your answer. Yeah, don't do that, please.
Oh, man.
I think that would be to me. And if I were Bubba Cunningham, the athletic director at North Carolina, I would be thinking about that as I tried to see if I could get him to say yes.
Absolutely fascinating. Cannot wait to see what happens, but it would be wild to see Bill Belichick down there at Chapel Hill.
Thanks for watching, but don't let the betting insights end here. If you want an extra edge this football season, you can get a month of VSiN Pro right now absolutely free. That means access to our betting insights, analysis, and tools like our betting splits at zero cost to you. Click the link in the description to sign up.